Hey, it's the Chief Bunny with Board Games, and I've got this little tiny box here. This is the Kickstarter game. It's called Riftwalker, a Storm Hollow card game. I'm going to come back to what Storm Hollow is in greater detail after I do the close-up. Just know that it's a Kickstarter role-playing adventure kind of game that's been in the queue for a very, very long time. It's by the same designers, Angela Hickman Newham, and Julian Lieberman Titus. Sorry, tripping all over those. And this is a Game Salute game. So, this is a particular card game with individual card powers on what they call rifts. And you're exploring these rifts, but it's basically how do you get victory points. Let me go in, I'll show you. It's got a beautiful look, and then we'll come back and I'll let you know what I think about the gameplay and kind of what my family thinks too. All right, a big part of this is the art. So I wanted to show you a little bit, and then we'll get in and take a closer look. But this is why I was intrigued in the first place by the storyboard game that's coming. I really like the cartoonishness, yet the boy do I want to explore this landishness, that's not words, I understand, of what the art is. And you're going to get some of that with the great way the cards and the elements and the rifts are displayed. So let me pull these out. I'll show you how it's set up, and then a real quick on how it plays, because it's pretty darn simple. All right, you're looking at the elements. Let me show you the rulebook real quick, just so you get an idea. Rulebook's glossy, nicely explained, beautiful pictures, shows you the grid. There's nothing I like better than show me how to set up the game. All right, it's all set up. Here it is. Just do this. And then it goes in and explains the rift cards. I'll show you one of these in a second. Walks you through your turn order. Kind of shows you how to do what's called a burst phase. Just think tic-tac-toe. We'll get into that in a second. And then it walks through what the card powers are, and then how the game ends, what scoring is. This game handles, I didn't say it earlier, 2, 3, or 4 people. All right, I've got everything set up just to show you. This is the element grid. Think tic-tac-toe. These are extra cards on the side that can be brought in to play. These are a this is my rift deck. Everybody starts off with 3 rifts. They're beautiful. They're very attractive. That's me saying the same thing twice. And their color scheme will match what you can see in the elements. You also have, again, wonderful art on what's simply a scoring place. So this is just saying that's my scoring place. And in front of me are where I will be exploring these rifts and putting them down into this area in front of me. And I'll probably rotate the camera just a little bit right now. All right, I'm cutting off some of those, but now you know that this is where they're going to go. The other thing they give you, which is essential, is a beautiful steps of a turn. There's only 4 steps to a turn, 2 of which are mandatory. And on the flip side, basically your definitions. And in my experience, you're going to be referring to these a lot, because the text in this game on these cards is really where the game is, and it's all in a made-up world. So you've got to know that if a shift is going to do something on a burst, and it's going to be flipping an element or bringing out or growing a new element, and a lot of times I find new players having to refer to this. That's fine, you get the terms after a while, but the mechanics are very simple. I'm going to show you quickly. So turn 1 is an element step. It is mandatory. All you're going to do is flip one of these over in order to power one of these rifts in your hand. You can also bring in the top card and choose which side you want. Now I'm going to pick one that's a little bit maybe more colorful. Let's go water and fire. So again, the beauty of this card is you can see how they're peeling it back to show you what is on the other side. And it's important because you're always trying to use these elements to get your rifts explored, which is simply putting them out in this pattern with the symbol up, Or you can use a rift by flipping it or placing a new one out, as long as it matches the symbol like Earth. If this was already explored and on the table, I could do what they call a shift. These are victory points, and by shifting them, you can see I increase the victory points, and I love the graphic depiction of how that gets kind of more energy. I also visualize it in my head. This is me exploring or finding that rift, finding this cool land called Soaring Stones, and me spending time in it, shifting it, is me learning more about it. And then, wow, now I really know this area. So you're going to be using these elements to explore, put a card down into play, and on future turns, because you can only do that once, to shift them. So that's what the elements do. Phase 2 is I flip the element. All right, I flip that fire element over. So boom, this is my turn 1. I flipped it. I have a card in my hand, should only have 3. And I'm going to put fire down. I've now explored fire. Now I'm going to go to what's called the burst phase. Burst phase is probably the hardest thing to teach, but it's not that hard. In order to score a card, let's imagine I'd shifted this one time to the 3, and I wanted to get it over to my score pile. The only way I can do that is to have some cards of the same type, so red, all in a tic-tac-toe kind of line. So either a straight line here, straight line down, or diagonal. So let's pretend I hadn't flipped this, and I had the red fire element in a row. I could burst this, and it will only work with a matching element, so fire to fire. I couldn't go burst either of, well, I couldn't burst this one. So I could say, all right, my burst step, it's totally optional. I'm going to burst this, and I'm going to move this over and score 3 points. The game will end, depending on how many players you have, when you have, I think it's 5, 6, or 7 victory cards over here. So as you're piling them over, the game gets, you can all tell, hey, the game's getting ready to go. The first person the first person to get to that, let's say you're playing a 2-player game. The first person to get to 7, the other player is going to get one more turn, and then it's over. But that's the burst step. So you can see, you've got 2 water underneath here, but, here's one. So if I could get if I had a water card that I wanted to get out, I don't have one handy, and I were able to get these all flipped over, I would have a possible burst of water in that diagonal. And the way you're going to move these around, there's cards that will let you flip-flop places. Some will let you, quote, grow, which is automatically turn a card over. It's the same as flipping it, but it's in a different phase. Or even on a regular turn when you begin, again, you're flipping over, or you can bring out a new element and replace. Get one of these into the discard and put out a new one wherever you might want it. So the element phase, the rift phase, the burst phase we covered, which gets them into the scoring area, and then you have what's called the refresh. I keep holding on to that like it's a card. You have the refresh phase. Let's assume that I've somehow gotten rid of the other 2 cards in my hand. You're always supposed to have 3. I would draw in cards to bring me back up to 3 cards in my hand. My turn would be over. So, and again, 2 and 3 are totally optional. Sometimes it's simply flip one of these over or bring something out, can't do anything, and maybe I don't even have anything to refresh. But if I do, I must refresh back up. If I had cards in my hand and I didn't like these, let's just say they weren't triggering with what I was trying to do. Maybe I'm trying to do a whole bunch of fire. I can discard all 3 of these and draw 3 new cards into my hand. All right, I'm just going to go over some of the text now on these, and I'll show you kind of what's going on. So when you explore this rift, or when you use this rift, even in a shift, you're going to get to do this text. So this one's really easy, really simple. Rainbow Lightning. You may flip or place an element card. So let's assume I've played this one. I flipped it. That was in stage 1. I then play this down into the play area. And now I get to do that thing. So let's say I had played this, I had flipped it in order to get this card into play. I can now do that special ability. Now there's plenty of other ones I could use, but I don't want my opponents to mess with it. I can flip this right back so it might be ready for me to shift on a future turn. So as simple as that is, you may flip or place an element card. So I flipped it back over, or I could have even placed out a whole nother one and gotten more of that gold color out there so that I might be able to burst it. Now over here are some special little conditions as well. So you'll have this, but then you've got these little special things. So this rift can be shifted with any element. It still can only be explored or burst with storm. So this is storm. I know I always call it lightning or something. So storm can only be explored with a gold, and it can only be bursted if I have 3, that one wouldn't work, but 3 gold in a row. I could burst it and get it over in a score pile. But that special little deal is saying that rainbow lightning, rainbow like I think all the colors of the rainbow wild card, says that for this particular card, I can use any one of these elements in order to shift them. So it'll be very easy for me to get this. Once I get it in play, I can shift it very easily, but then I'm going to need 3 gold in a row to get it over. So you're kind of looking at 2 different things on this card. Not difficult though, not difficult at all. We come in with Soaring Stones, which is the Legacy of Knowledge. Again, love the card, beautiful aspect. You may shift one of your rifts for every 7-point explored rift you have. So, in order to get this into play, on my element phase, I flipped over an earth. I got it down into play. So now that it's in play, I am able to shift one of my other rifts as long as it's a 7, or I have a 7 down. Well, I have a 7 down. Here's a 7. That would allow me to automatically shift one of my other rifts because I've got one in play. So kind of an interesting card because it's making me want to keep, if I have this in my hand, I want to make sure I get something to a 7, get this down, and have another card down that can be shifted as well. So it makes my turn much more efficient. And there's no other specials with this card. Now we're coming into things that I think are a little bit harder for the new folks to grok. Trading favors. Lands in, again, love the art. So you may shift an opponent's rift. So now I'm going to be shifting an opponent's rift, all right, a little odd, on my burst step. So when my step comes up, I don't have to burst, but it's step number 3. I can then shift someone else's rift. You may burst a rift that matches the element of that rift. So what that allows me to do is, let's say someone else has this purple card over there. I could shift theirs and then allow me to burst this and score it without having to go through all the trouble of getting it lined up over there. All right, and then we deal with the bonus. At the end of the game, this card is worth bonus points for each rift, worth bonus points in all opponents' score piles. That's still confusing to me. The way I read it is that any other card in any other player's scoring pile that is a bonus, I will score this for it. I will score 1 point if I manage to shift it to a 3, and I will score 2 points if I can shift it to a 7. And I believe I've got that right. Now again, I'm going to not claim that I know exactly because some of these confuse me, but I believe I got that right. This card's great if I see my opponents putting down all kinds of bonus cards, and I go, you know what? I can piggyback on that. So again, I believe I have that right. Designers, please comment if I've got it totally wrong. All right, and one last example is Soaring Stones, so Strange Gym Magic. On your burst step, so again, that's the step number 3, totally optional. On this turn, on your burst step, you may burst 2 of your 7-point rifts. If you discard a rift from your score pile, you must have 2 rifts to burst. So, if this was the case, and I just dropped that card, I do not have 2 rifts that can burst. In order to burst a rift, it's got to be able to be scored. This one can't. But if I'd had it rotated to here, I would have 2 rifts that can burst. However, I understand the card, but the rifts I have over here are worth 7 apiece. So even if I had to delete this one just to get these 2 over, I'm not gaining anything. So I understand the card, but in order to get it to trigger, I would want this to be both at 7, and then maybe I had a 3 over here, and I could get rid of that and then burst both of these over. Obviously, that's the strategy I'd want to play to. I can also see this being something where I'm either behind and I need to catch up because someone else has laid in a bunch more rift cards. They've burst more of them. Or I'm really just rapidly moving this burst pile along, my victory point pile along. So even if I was bringing them over as 3, me getting there and ending this game faster might be of value. So the game, as you're going to hear me talk about more, is more into this text and this text, with the skeleton being pretty light and easy and pleasant on the eye. I can't wait for the storyboard game. I may have mentioned that. You've seen, I love the colors. I love the fact that the elements and that two-sided nature to them, and that you're flipping them over, bringing them out. It gets a little bit into the, you grow this, you flip this, and my son and my wife, who I taught the game to, really kind of stumbled over the language. Now there's the little turn order card, and on the flip side of that turn order card, as I showed you, has those definitions. That's good, but it is still a bit of a barrier. Even when I read it and I knew a little bit about the storyboard game, I was kind of like, okay, I'm really got to get, I can read rules, but I really got to lock in that what's a rift, what's an element, what's grow, what's flip, what's, replace, and it was a little bit of a struggle just teaching it. But gameplay is simple. You've seen it. It's very, very simple in terms of what you do physically. What is difficult, but also the meat of the game, is the individual powers that are on the different cards. I love that. I like it. Now here's the negative of it. You've got to grow into the game. You've got to understand that this power is going to trigger real well with some other power. Or, the part I like, the exploration, kind of doubled in since you're exploring rifts, of realizing, oh, wow, I've got this rift, and this other rift is going to chain very well with it. I like that. That trips a little trigger inside me. If it trips a trigger inside you and you like pretty games, you will love this, I think. You will really, really like it. It's a light filler that takes 40 minutes to play. Teaching it, an hour. But I thought my son would love it, 9.5, almost 10. No, we were about halfway through and he's like, Dad, I don't want to play this anymore. He just couldn't wrap his head around this special power does this as I rotate it, or as I use it, or as I explore it. And it just, the art didn't do anything for him, so he bailed on it. We played for about 40 minutes and it was a continual struggle, and he just said, can we go play something else? Yes, we can always go play something else. So therein lies a bit of the negative wrapped right in with the positive. I think if you enjoy that card power situation and the triggering of different things with a very simple mechanic, the difficulty being in those special powers that are on those individual rifts and how they theme, I think this is a great buy for you. I think it's a steal. If you don't, stay far, far away. And the last caveat, which I said I would explore further, is that Storm Hollow, Storm Hollow storyboard game. This starts to bring you into that world. And I don't have that game yet. I did back it on Kickstarter. It should be here hopefully within a couple, 3 months of 2017. But I believe that might bring my son back to this one if I can get him into the storyboard game. It's like a basic entry-level role-playing game with a whole lot of chrome on it, beautiful art, Not a lot of open conflict from what I understand, but more of an exploratory adventure. I think it might send him back into this because he's going to grok it more fully. We'll see, and if he doesn't, that's fine. I'm really hoping my wife will want to do this as a filler because I like it, but it's a little long to be a filler. So we'll see. We'll see. So take that as you will. Try it out. If you see it, I think you'll enjoy it. And if you want to see some pretty stuff, I don't think you can buy it anymore, so it may not be worth looking at, but go look at the storyboard game. Just go check some of the pictures on Kickstarter. I'll be doing an unboxing when that shows up, and I think it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited, but that's something other than this. This is like its little nephew. See you guys later, Chief. Bonding with board games.